What? Well, like you've never done it before. What's happening, YouTube? It's showing me as Doc coming back to you with another deck profile, but not only one deck profile, we got two deck profiles in one today. One's going to be a blue version of this plain deck, and one's going to be an orange version of this plain deck. With that, let's jump right into the deck. Alright guys, so one of the decks I've been wanting to work on since the release of, the reveal of Windsweeper. Not since the reveal of Windsweeper, but, you know, after thinking about trying to fit Slipstream with Windsweeper, because Slipstream fits so well. Slipstream has never seen competitive play, or, you know, just play in general. You know, Cliff Jumper's definitely always been the one to outshine Slipstream, and, you know, she is kind of, well, I guess with her effect and the fact that she moves damage, I guess she can't have more attack because I guess that might be too good. Definitely can't have more health potentially when you kind of, you know, look at the character and what she's about. But in conjunction with Windsweeper and the stratagem, it's like, okay, we need a 6-star character to potentially play. I've gone from, my first thought was Raider Sights to potentially Night Racer with her stratagem is actually another slot that has high potential because you have 2 planes and then you also have Night Racer. So there's also potential to do that as well. And Night Racer has 3 more health, and, you know, of course, with Stealth Mission, you're able to play 2 more double blue, so maybe you could play Heroic Resolve won't do you any good. So see, now that I say it and think about it, I don't know how well off a secret action star card would be in here. I mean, I guess you could play a more orange version and play even the scores, which would make more sense. So there's a thought. But yeah, so for this deck profile, again, we're going to be doing a orange and a blue version. I'm going to start off with the blue version and talk about the characters real quick. Let's talk about Skywarp real quick first. Now, Skywarp is interesting. He is from Wave 1. 6-star character, and he's a plane. He has 8 health with 2 defense on both. Excuse me, he's a 4/8/2 in both modes, which is really cool. And in his alt mode, what it says is when you flip to this mode, each character, or excuse me, each player reveals the top card of their deck. Now, seeing that in Wave 1, we're like, okay, and then what? You know what I mean? So it wasn't that like big of a deal. But there's a special upgrade in this deck that will actually have very cool, very strong synergy with this card effect. And then on his bot mode, which you probably be opening with just about all the time, is just about every game rather, is that when this defends and you flip at least a white, you may choose to one of your other characters and move the damage counter that he would have took onto another character. So I'll just leave it at that for now because it'll make sense once I get to Windsweeper. And then of course we have Slipstream over here. Slipstream is a 3/13/2 in her alt mode, and then in her bot mode she's a 4/13/1. Now, or I take that back, she still has 3 attack. Why do I think she had 4? Jeez. Anyway, so she has 3 in both modes, and then she loses 1 defense in her bot mode. Now, her alt mode is where she stays most of the time. This deck doesn't have a crazy amount of like. Well, it does have flip density, but like, you know, you're using it on Skywarp and you're using it on Windsweeper every once in a while. But when any one of your planes attack, you may move 1 damage counter from it to the defender. Now keep in mind, moving damage, that means that cards like Hollow Matter Projector do not count. A Hollow Matter Projector states that the upgraded character cannot take non-attack damage from your opponent's cards. Moving damage is a different keyword in the way around the loophole around you know, having protection from those types of effects. So definitely keep that in mind, that all your move effects will still work, fling effects and what have you. Now her bot mode does say when she battles and she flips at least 3 different battle icon colors, she gets +3 attack. So she has a built-in leave in the battle, which will put her at base 6. So I mean, there are a couple. I mean, there are a good bit of mixed icons in this deck. So there is potential to hit an orange, black, and blue, or orange, black, and green, or whatever, and you know, just trigger the effect and have that free leave in the battle. I don't know how much I'm gonna end up using that effect, and also she's not playing in that mode. Well, I say that back. That doesn't matter. I'm thinking about Windsweeper, but yeah, so again, most of the time you're going to be keeping Slipstream in the mode that she starts in. And then we have the Big Daddy Super Rare Windsweeper. And then we have the Super Rare Windsweeper, who is you know, one of the 7 SRTs from the set. I think we have 3 Decepticons, or 3 Decepticons and 4 Autobots. And what his effect is, he's a 5-15-1 in bot mode, and also he's a 4-15-2 in alt mode. In his bot mode, when it's attacks, if you have at least 2 planes on your starting team, which you do, you have 2 on top of that. You have 2, or you have 3 total. You may move 2 damage counters from him to the defender. And if you didn't have at least 2 starting planes, you would just move 1. So either way, it has a slipstream-like effect. So already doing simple math with slipstream, if you have at least 3 damage counters on Windsweeper, when Windsweeper attacks, you'll move 1 damage counter from the slipstream effect, and you'll also move an additional 2 with the Windsweeper. So ideally, the first time that you attack with this and he had at least 3 damage counters on him, he's effectively 18 health, because he has 15 health to start. If he's down to 12 and he goes back up to 15, pretty much just for attacking, he technically has 18 health. So the total health count for this deck is 20 or 36, but as soon as you start activating the move effect, your health pool actually kind of gradually goes up throughout as the game goes along. So I will say on a competitive level, I don't think this deck is going to be like a top tier deck, but I do feel like it has some potential to be a lower tiered / competitive fun deck. So like a deck you could play with your friends and still have some type of competitive viability and actually be kind of strong. Now, going back to Windsweeper, we still have to talk about his bot mode as well, which I actually think is very valuable. So when one of your characters attacks, or excuse me, yeah, when one of your other characters attacks, you can move 1 damage counter from it onto this. And what that does is just help filter all of the damage that you've been taking on your planes, give it to him, so that way when he flips back to alt mode and attacks, he can move that damage back to the enemy. Now, last but not least, we got to talk about a stratagem, Saturation Bombing. And what it says, I got to actually read this one, a lot of wording. It's a 1-star stratagem, uncommon, and once per game, when you flip your Windsweeper air defense to alt mode and he has a number of damage counters on him equal to or greater than the number of enemies on the battlefield, move 1 counter from him to each enemy. So and flip this, by the way. So when you flip this stratagem, you get to see the really cool full art on the back. Now, what this means is when you flip him from bot mode to alt mode, he will literally just fling 1 damage to each enemy. So it's like an armed hovercraft plus a heal. So you'll be doing both. So when he's in this mode, you flip him to alt mode, move, let's say they have 3 characters, you move 1 damage to each of them, healing him for 3. Then when you also attack with him, you'll heal another 2 essentially. So you're healing 5. So the survivability of this deck seems like it's pretty good. I think one of this deck's potential, well, you know what, let me not get ahead of myself. I'll talk about the weaknesses at the end of the video. But without further ado, let's jump into the deck list itself. Alright guys, to start off, you guys know what it is, how I always start off my deck profile, security checkpoint. Security checkpoint is obviously essential in a control deck. 3 handheld blasters, 3 security checkpoint are always definitely needed in a blue deck, just like we start off every deck list in an orange deck with 3 Piece of Tyranny and 3 Improvised Shield. Play your upgrade, play this card. You know, if you have a whole bunch of actions in your hand, definitely get as much value as you can out of this card. It'll definitely slow your opponent down when, quote-unquote, a third of their turn is taken. I say a third of their turn because usually one part of their turn is flipping the character, another part of their turn is playing an action, and another part of their turn is playing an upgrade. You know, so on the basic surface, taking away a piece of their turn that's very vital is, you know, very good. Next up, to start off with the burn, like the main reason why I would like to play this deck. Now, Horrible is a deck that I have a couple of different decks that I want to show you deck profiles for. You guys know Horrible is infamous already, even pre-release, with the Sky Shadow pieces and the Sky Shadow Sync. Horrible is probably the best damage output, direct damage output character in the game. Can't think of anybody else that does it like he does. Yes, Windsweeper and then they do move damage. It's not necessarily dealt damage, but it's still, you know, insane what the planes could potentially do. But of course, Horrible I think is going to be the undisputed king right now. But this deck can also use these cards very well as well. 3 Magnetic Dysfunction Ray, 3 Precision Fire. These are orange-black icons. This is a this deck is heavier on the black icons as well. Again, I've always told you guys I like to look for synergies within the picture of the card. I say that because Precision Fire has Starscream. Is that Starscream? One of those planes. They got a whole bunch of planes in the background, so it makes sense for it to play in this deck. Alt mode is where a lot of characters will be at in the in the early to mid game. Probably potentially depending on if your opponent's playing Titans, they might have a character in body mode or whatever. But like characters like Night Racer and other characters that don't need to flip, you'll have Slipstream and Windsweeper in alt mode more times than not. And you can easily just call alt mode, deal 1 damage to every character in alt mode, then easily move that damage over. Same with Magnetic Dysfunction Ray, but of course this card's a little bit more powerful because if your opponent has any Autobot characters, they're also taking 1 as well. So they're taking 2 total. So imagine you're playing against a deck that has 3 Autobots. They're taking 2 on all their guys. You're taking 1 on all your planes, and then you send all that damage back over. Well, not all of it, but you send damage over little by little with Slipstream's effect when Skywarp attacks, this and that. Now I will say, going back to Skywarp real quick, I wish with him having 6 stars he had at least 9 or 10 health, but I mean, you can't have it all, but it is what I mean. But he does have 4 attack. 4 attack is actually pretty strong for him to start. I just worry about his survivability because to take a step back, his effect when you hit a white, you get to transfer that damage over to Windsweeper, and then Windsweeper can just pass that damage over. So it's kind of like a you know, filtering, healing, you know, type deal you're working with. I'm playing 6 whites in the deck, so you're kind of just hoping to hit a white icon. If you don't, then I mean, it is what it is, especially if he takes a big chunk of damage. But who's to say the next time he defends, you know, after he attacks on the second go around, who's to say that he wouldn't potentially be able to block and, you know, that and not block, but flip a white icon and then transfer that damage over to help with his survivability. So definitely looking forward to see how worth it is to be able to play Skyward's effect in that way, because it's the first time it's relevant. So anyway, like I said, 6 of the best cards in the deck. Next up, we have, you know what, I guess in conjunction with those burn cards, I'll show you the second suite of direct damage cards. Scouting Mission and Cayman Crash. These are some of the other best cards in the set. They're both commons. Cayman Crash got to be the best common in the set. Insane card. It's like the new One Shot Stand, One Shot Fall. Has a black icon. It's an Energon Axe enabler, just like the rest of them were, but you only take 1 damage on your character and 2 on one of your opponent's characters. Killing characters, of course, outside of battle is one of the best things to do in this game. One of the most efficient ways to win a game. I should say it like that. And also we have Scouting Mission. Now Scouting Mission is your draw power of the deck. This deck is very low on draw power, but it's on color in terms of the blue-black, so it helps with your Pierce. And then you deal 1 damage to one of your characters and easily draw 2 cards, and then also easily move that damage over with your Slipstream or whoever. So all of these self-damaging cards are definitely very strong. One card I will say I'm not playing in here is Photon Bomb. There was no space for Photon Bomb. Photon Bomb also has planes on the picture, and it makes sense to play that card, deal 2 damage to every single character, and then move 1 damage at least back every time you attack with your one of your planes because of your Slipstream ability, which just sounds really good in theory. I just don't know if it's too slow. What I'm worried about planes is, again, that it might be too slow, and that you know, down the road WOTC may just have to go a little above and beyond for planes and make a card that kind of breaks them, but breaks them to the point where that brings them into competitive viability. So we'll see what happens. Or this deck actually might be good. I don't know. Next up, we have a new card, one of the other new cards from Wave 5, Lock on Target. I was looking for a space to play this card, and this is a card that's also, spoiler alert, going to be in my orange deck profile, because it makes sense to play this card. It's not necessarily on, it's on color in this deck, and it's not on color in the orange deck, but you know, it's still a random blue icon that you can flip. All your guys are planes, except for Skywarp when he's in bot mode, but I mean, it is what it is with him. But Windsweeper is a plane in both modes, which is also something very unique, and I think the first time we've ever seen anything like that, with a character having its plane trait also in bot mode, which is very interesting. Slipstream you probably never flip. You just might maybe late game to try to get the +3, the free leap in the battle. Otherwise, you'll be keeping her in that mode. So for the most part, you should get the blue icon off, Lock on the Target. But this deck has at least 20 or so-ish black icons, so scaling up with your Pierce, with the orange blacks, and then all the other blacks, at least try to, you're moving, like this deck obviously it's a control deck. It's not about getting high numbers. This deck is able to easily get damage onto your opponent's characters without needing the bigger they are, without needing you know, attack buffs. This deck's strength is in its direct damage, and then also of course moving damage. That's the theme of the deck. But 3 Lock on Target, definitely a very solid card. I'm excited to test it out. Next up, we have another new card, 3 Concealing Contrails, another new card that I was thinking about using, and this gets maximum use because Concealing Contrails is a double black icon, but one of the black icons is for the plane icon. So you are only able to get the extra Pierce when you attack with the plane, which will be just about all the time, unless you're attacking with Skyward. But even then, you're still at least getting the Pierce 1. But this is also a secret action, and what it does is when one of your characters defends, for every black icon you flip, your character gets +1 defense. So the first thing that pops out to me about this card is it dodges belligerence. So when your opponent comes at you crazy with belligerence, you flip this card, every black icon you get has nothing to do with orange or blue, oranges or blues, so you will gain +1 defense for every card. So if you have this card on defense and you flip another one, that's +2 defense, plus the next one you flip. Every blue-black in your deck essentially becomes a double blue. Well, excuse me, outside of belligerence, but otherwise your blue-blacks become double blue. So you have like a whole bunch of, not a whole bunch, but you have like a lot of double blues. Your orange-blacks become a blue. So this card is definitely very good and kind of like an in hostilities, and I'm very excited to play this card as well because I've been looking to, you know, test this card out as well. And next up for our last 2 actions, we have 1 Disassemble and 1 Hold the Line. This could be reprocessed. I don't know how much the heal 2 matters in this deck when you're trying to move damage and you're not hitting for crazy high numbers, but you're still getting in for incremental damage. But it is on color, so that was the main reason why I wanted to play it. If your opponent does get an enhanced power cell or energy pack on their character, I'm hoping that the crazy amount of direct damage that this deck could potentially put out overrides the fact that they have the extra 3 health and you're just burning them like crazy, kind of like with Horrible. So we'll see. And same with Hold the Line. Well, not same with Hold the Line, but Hold the Line's like a 1-0 staple in just about all of my decks still right now. And you know, healing 1 and then blocking off a airstrike patrol attack or a ominous attack, or you know, any of the heads or anything like that later on in the game is definitely very valuable. The first go around, if they're not playing a deck that it's good against right away, you could probably let this go. But on the recycle, if you can find a card in your hand to trade it for, I'd probably definitely get this towards the late game when they have like a head left and you don't want them, like a Parsec. Really good against Parsec when they have 2 bold 1. I've seen Parsec get all the way up to like 12. I mean, granted, it was with a, you know, grenade launcher and supercharge or fight for position, but it can still happen. And after they do all that, when you end up only taking 1, you feel good. And that's it for the actions. Next up for the upgrades, we have 3 Handheld Blaster. Not much to say about this card. You can put this on one of your characters. I'm loving how, again, Handheld Blaster and Improvised Shield are getting more use these days. And, you know, it's nice to be able to get the bold with all the black, the Pierce icons you have in the deck. Next up, we have 3 Sturdy Javelin. Not much to say about this, except for one of the main. Obviously, we're only using it for the range side. We don't have any melee characters, so Nova character will be getting +2 attack in this deck. But what's cool about this is you are able to. This is the white icon, so this also helps with your Skywarp effect. So this is one of the staple cards in just about, you know, most range decks that you would want to play anyway. And then it helps to try to facilitate. So it's not like you're forcing whites into the deck. This is the white you want to play. Next up, we have another new card that's also a white that helps out with Skywarp. It's Paralizo Box. And what's really cool about this, first of all my characters are ranged all the time. So no matter when I see this card, it's gonna net me the green to be able to pick it up off of battle. This has a orange and a green icon, but the green icon has the range symbol. So again, only ranged characters can pick it up when they battle. Otherwise, it's just a white and you still will flip 2 additional cards. So this card is a grenade launcher, but it's like, okay, yeah, it's a gamble to be a grenade launcher, right? Well, remember that alt mode effect we talked about Skywarp earlier? This card says when you flip to this mode, each character reveals the top card of their deck. So now that actually matters. So when you get to a turn where you go flip Skywarp and you attack with Skywarp, you get to a turn where you flip Windsweeper the next turn, attack with Slipstream. On your next turn, you can potentially flip Skywarp back. Or not flip Windsweeper, I'm sorry. Probably not flip Windsweeper on the first go around. Let's say if you do have the Paralizo Box, you'll flip Windsweeper or Skywarp back. Look at the top card of each player's deck, and guess what? You'll know the icon color on top of their deck. Now, if they have a blank icon, you're still assed out. You can't do anything about that because the blank icon does not have a color. Otherwise, they have black, orange, blue, white, or green. You will be able to call that and absolutely guarantee get the free grenade launcher, not free, but get the grenade launcher for the turn. So I want to actually fit a third one in here and have 7 whites because the Hold the Line, the 3 Sturdy Javelin, and the 2 Paralizo Box makes for my 6 whites. 6 whites might be enough, and even if I add 7, that doesn't. I have a higher chance of hitting a white for Skywarp's effect, but that still doesn't mean it's going to happen efficiently and effectively. So maybe I should just keep it at 6 whites and call it a day. Next up, we have 2 Energon Axe. This card is the easiest it's ever been to activate. We've had One Shot Stand, One Shot Fall, but that was 1 card. Now we have Camion Crash. Now we have Precision Fire. We have Magnetic Dysfunction Ray. We have Scouting Mission. We have other ways to activate this card now, and it's way too easy to just go Scouting Mission, draw 2, play Axe, and get in for a swing, flinging damage over because of Slipstream. Go on from there. And also the Pierce 2. So this card actually should be a 3 of potentially in this deck. And the card I'm about to show you next that I'm very surprised at myself that I'm only playing 1 could potentially get cut for it because of the other amounts of direct damage in the deck. And you want to hit for high numbers. And that card is Armed Hovercraft. I cannot believe I'm only playing 1 Armed Hovercraft. But honestly, the main reason I'm only playing 1, Space. This is a 40 card deck, and it's very hard to try to find it. Actually, once I started just throwing, well, how I ended up building deck lists, especially on Fortress Maximus, which helps a lot, is I just go 3 Peaceful Tyranny, 3 Improvised Shield, 3 Grenade Launcher, all the obvious stuff. Then I'll throw in like the little bits of stuff that I really want to get, and then I'll end up with like 45 cards. Then I have to shave cards. And once I get up there, it's like, wow, I actually have too many cards, and I need to obviously cut. What do I need to cut? And then when I think about the logic of this deck and how this deck works, you already have the redundancy of so much direct damage. Armed Hovercraft does 1 damage to every character, and it gives you +1 attack, but versus the rest of the cards you see in the deck. When you compare them, Inner Giant Axe gives you that buff to give you some oomph to your attacks. Paralyzing Box all of a sudden makes Skywarp go from 4 to 8, like in a deck that already like pierces and like moves damage. So in that sense, that's why Armored Hovercraft is at 1 currently. Maybe I could side deck. I could definitely see myself side decking 1 or 2 more of these against like 4 wide decks, because 4 wide or 5 wide decks typically have lower health. So the Armored Hovercraft has so much more value there. But against like Titan Master decks and stuff like that, to be honest with you, this card is still one of my favorite cards in the game, but it's been underwhelming to play against certain decks at certain times. So. And last but not least, we have one Scoundrel's Blaster. Definitely got to have your greens in here. It's obviously all your characters are Decepticon. Very easy to pick up. Get a dead card or a card you don't need for a matchup out of your hand, and go from there. And for our armors, we have 2 Smoke Cloak and 1 Bastion Shield. The Smoke Cloaks are kind of just there to help facilitate Skywarp's effect with the Tough 1. It is a blue-black, and of course gives you Tough 1. Now, it has merit because it's on color. You know, it's blue-black for the Pierce. And again, it helps with Skywarp's effect. That's really about it. We have the 1 Bastion Shield. I didn't want to play Bastion Shield at first, but then I'm like, duh. If they have Hollow Matter Projector, a lot of my deck is dead to that character I'm trying to get damage on. Granted, you can move damage to that character, but Bastion Shield just easily gets rid of that Hollow Matter Projector from them. And then you keep going on with your onslaught of attacks. Now, I say onslaught, I'm making it sound really good in my head, and my deck list looks so good on paper. But the performance, I'm worried about, and I'm also worried about his draw power. And again, we'll talk about that when we get to weaknesses and strengths. So that's it for the armors. And then last up, we have some survivability in Enhanced Power Cell. Enhanced Power Cell, of course, is the new black icon card from Wave 5 type matches attack. It gives +3 health, and putting this on Skywarp all of a sudden to make him 11 total health. And then if he gets to stand up and attack again, you're able to block. Or not block, but you're able to like heal with the Skywarp. You're able to move damage with Windsweeper. I think Windsweeper's bot mode effect in a deck like this is very valuable, because when Skywarp takes 3 or 4 damage in the first round, and then Slipstream starts taking damage, or if they focus everything at Skywarp and he dies, it just is what it is. That's just Transformers TCG. But if they don't, and let's say he has like 4 or 5 damage counters on him, well, you can play an Enhanced Power Cell, attack with him, move 1 damage from Slipstream, with Slipstream's effect, move 1 damage to Skywarp to the defender, and then also with Windsweeper's effect, you can move another damage counter, so he's essentially healing too. So it all sounds really good. I just hope it performs decent. And that's going to be it for the blue deck profile. And now we're going to jump right into the orange version. Alright guys, and for the second deck profile, we are still talking about, of course, the plain deck, but the orange version. And as you can see, we have 1 character difference, and that is in trading Skywarp for Sky Shadow Plane. Now, Sky Shadow Plane makes sense for a couple of reasons. He is our latest power crept version of Ironhide and Prowl with 4, well, I guess Ironhide Prowl technically is just the same. 5 bold 1 is the same as 4 bold 2, but he has 2 defense. He has the same 10 health, and he's ranged in the plane, and of course he fits in with the plane catalog that we have here with the other 2 characters. And him having bold 2 is insane. Of course, when you're in an orange deck, you're hoping in an all orange / black deck to at least hit like 7 or 8 or 9. Like 10 is like you're asking for too much, and be thankful you got it, but don't expect it all the time type thing. Like, it's actually insane, like, how your first turn can just be, like, just having bold 2 out the gate without having to play a fight for position or whatever, just having that effect stock in a deck where, like, cards just are graining you so much, like, easy access to this, get up, your scale your oranges and blacks is insane. So, again, like I said, not much changes with the lineup except for the stratagem and the plane, because Skywarp is 6 and the saturation bombing is 1 star. So, trading that out for a 7-star Sky Shadow Plane, and that's really it to say about this. We already talked about Slim Streeper. Jesus, I stay fusing cards. Slipstream and Windsweeper. And without further ado, let's get into the aggro deck profile. Alright guys, so first up, and this is actually going to be kind of quick because a lot of these cards I already talked about. 3 Peace to Tyranny. Actually not that, well, I'll take that back. I'm not going to say it's not that strong in this deck. You can potentially use this on the Sky Shadow Plane and maybe Slipstream. Obviously probably not Windsweeper. But you know what? It has some potential in this deck to do, like, move damage with Windsweeper if their characters is tapped out. Then draw for your turn, and then, draw for Peace to Tyranny turn, and then, attack and then move more damage or whatever. So I don't know how good this card actually is in the deck besides just trading it for a green. Unless you flip it, this might just be in there for the icons. But this deck can use all 3 characters for Peace to Tyranny fodder. So 3 Peace to Tyranny, can't leave home rather without them. Next up, we have the cards we already talked about: 3 Magnetic Dysfunction Ray and 3 Precision Fire. But these cards are even stronger in this version of the deck because they are on color in terms of what my deck's already trying to do. heavy aggressive orange. So again, not much to say about these. Do damage, move damage, keep it moving. I should call that deck. I should call this deck Keep It Moving. That's a good name. Next up, we have 3 Fiber Position, and in conjunction with the 3 Fiber Position, I'm also going to show you the card from the last deck profile, 3 Lock on Target. So these are your attack buffs from the deck. I'm kind of relieved that it's not the usual 3 Supercharge, 3 Reckless Charge. I get how broken Reckless Charge is, how good Reckless Charge is. The 3 doesn't matter when you're killing the character and blah, blah, blah. Listen, new cards, new stuff. Blue icon on color, bold 4. Crazy. And I think you'll hit the I think you'll get the blue icon a lot more often than not, because your Sky Shadow plane, I'm showing you Skyward, your Sky Shadow plane can't flip. So it's always going to be a plane that when your opponent, it's like, man, if he flips one of those blues in his deck, this just changes everything. And that's those situations where you'll kill a character or be meaning to kill a character, and then now they can use it for Peace Through Tyranny because you missed it by 1. And that's where those smatterings of blue always end up mattering. You got your orange black bold 2, your blue bold 4, which could actually potentially be really insane. Can't wait to play both versions of this deck. Next up, we have another card, the other smattering of blue in the deck, the Scouting Missions. And it is, again, your draw power. Again, draw power is very weak in this deck, unfortunately, but it's still on, not necessarily on color, but I mean, it does have the Pierce icon. And, you know, it helps you, obviously get extra cards in your hand, and it helps you be able to move damage to your opponent as well. So it's pretty much pep talk, but it's so much more than pep talk, obviously, in the sense of you're getting this on attacks for your Pierce, and then you're able to move damage, and then also draw 2 cards to help you filter through your deck more. Next up, we have only 2 Camion Crash. Now, I know this sounds crazy, and this this has to go up to 3. I just don't know what to cut yet, so don't kill me. Now, it can't be a Scouting Mission. I don't know, maybe a Precision Fire? No, that doesn't make sense either. I don't know. You guys let me know, unless you made it 40, make your deck 41. This card, if I'm playing 3 in the other deck, when I'm looking at this deck and the other cards that I have in here that you'll see, I actually couldn't fit this a 3rd Camion Crash, and like, this is one of the best cards again in the game. So absolutely need to find a way to get this card back at 3. But of course, again, one of the best cards in the game probably now. I think this action is actually insane. I mean, if One Shot Stand is my favorite action in the game, this card is definitely in my top 10. Next up, again, for our last 2 actions, we have 1 Disassemble and 1 Hold the Line. Not much to say about these. Again, the Hold the Line will help out a lot more against other aggressive decks to help your characters survive against smaller characters. Don't set this against characters that have 10 plus more stars. I've had people do that to me, and I'm like, okay, so you can't take less than 10. And I don't even need 10 to kill your characters, so okay. One card that didn't make the cut, unfortunately, was Concealing Contrails. Concealing Contrails actually just doesn't make that much sense in this version because, well, it does and it doesn't. I'd say that it has merit. But first of all, the main issue, once again, guess what I'm about to say. Space is always the issue. So I mean, but having that double black icon against, like, against control decks is just definitely very good. But hey, control decks are kind of, I won't say out the window, but they're definitely the minority, even if they still are playable and good, etc. Anyway, next up, starting out with the best orange weapon in the game, still undisputed, Grenade Launcher. I'm not gonna say any more about that, except for Wingspan could put it under it. Next up, we have 3 Static Laser Ironhide. Now, this is one of the coolest cards in the deck because the way that this card works, this card says when this is not on Ironhide, when the character attacks, when the upgraded character attacks and it's not on Ironhide, deal 2 damage to the character. Well, you are able to order things the way you would like in this game. And how it works with Windsweeper or even Slipstream while you have it on the field, or even, even if you have a little Sky Shadow plane. So when Slipstream says when one of your planes attacks, and so does Static Laser or Ironhide, you were able to order that chain, if you will, however you want. So what I mean by that is you can take the 2 damage from Static Laser and Ironhide, then move it right back to the opponent with your Windsweeper's effect, which is insane. Now you only get to heal 1 with the Slipstream, but I mean, essentially the damage that you get is free. So it's just a free orange weapon that gives +3 attack in this deck, and this is definitely the secondary Grenade Launcher and very insane. So this is actually probably better than Grenade Launcher on Windsweeper because you keep the card, first of all, and it's 5 damage instead of 4. So it's 5 total damage. You're moving 2 to your opponent guaranteed, and then you have 3 when you're attacking with the Windsweeper. Next up, we have the 3-sturdy Javelin. Again, definitely one of the best cards in the deck. It is a white icon. Having some whites in the deck is always good to help facilitate having extra flips throughout your, your battle flips. And of course, the effect is just insane and more direct damage what the deck wants to do. Next up, of course, again, we have the 2 Paralazo box, another grenade launcher in this deck. So we have all insane weapons. There is not one weapon in this deck that's like so-so in your deck. Every single one of these weapons are insane in this deck. Unfortunately, you don't have the Skywarp in the deck to be able to dictate what card they have on top of their deck when you flip back to alt mode. But if your opponent's deck, if you're playing a sincerely mixed deck like a General Prime, a General Optimus Prime deck, a deck with that character is notorious for playing mixed icons. You kind of just got to make an educated guess. I'm sure even though their deck is mixed, it's still slanted one way or another. So you just play to your percentages based off of what you've been seeing or whatever throughout the game, and then hopefully you get there. Otherwise, most of the time, you call blue if they're playing control deck, orange if they're playing, well, orange-black decks are kind of tricky. Probably might get away with calling, you probably still call orange most of the time. And sometimes you don't get there. It is what it is. You take a gamble, and it'll pay off, though, when it does pay off. And, yeah, +4 is definitely insane, obviously. And next up, we have a 3 Improvised Shield. Not much to say about this card. This is not a card I would equip in this deck because it doesn't do anything. If I was playing Concealing Contrails, you could potentially play this card because it gives tough 1. So you could play this on like in a desperate situation. I don't see this being a normal play, but it is a play. If you find a way to fit Concealing Contrails in your deck, you can actually equip this on one of your planes and then set Concealing Contrails, and then you'll have tough 1, which will give you facilitation to flip potentially more black icon cards to give you +1 defense. Otherwise, just a hard hitting card to flip obviously off the top on attack, what you want. And we have okay, so also with our armors we have the 1 Bashing Shield and also 1 increased durability. So also talk about our last 2 utilities, the same ones in our blue deck profile. Enhanced Power Cell. The increased durability gives us 3 other cards to help with survivability on top of the survivability that they have in Born. So the Bashing Shield's obviously still there to get rid of hollow matter projectors, etc. And the increased durability obviously is easier targeted by Bashing Shield, but hey, if they don't have it and you're able to all of a sudden have your Windsweeper be at 19 health and then like you're healing all the time, could definitely prove to be very good. Now there is potential to actually still just play Skywarp with the Windsweeper and the Stratagem and Slipstream, but I'm afraid that against another aggro matchup, you're definitely going to lose Skywarp within. I mean, I guess you'll probably lose Sky Shadow Plane in 2 attacks anyway also, so but there is potential to still play him because of the effect with the whites, and you can pass the damage over, and then also the fact that you can flip him back over and get the guarantee with Paralazo box. So Sky Shadow Plane isn't the be all end all, but he definitely is the hardest hitting right out of the gate, which is the point. And that's it for the deck profiles. I hope you guys like my dual deck profile. I won't be doing these often, but I will do them for decks that I have 2 different versions of. And in this case with Wave 5 type Masters Attack, there were a lot of cards presented to us that gave us the ability to go one way or another with these decks. Check out my decks on Fortress Maximus. If you end up playing the orange or the blue version of this deck, comment down in the comment section below. Come back and report how the deck went. Tell me if it sucks. Tell me if it was good. Tell me if it has potential, what it's missing. I'm also going to be doing some games myself with people all across the world, hopefully here soon. So be looking out for a new series of that. I'm going to, in conjunction with my deck profiles, be doing games against random people, but cool people, I'm sure, with these decks that I'm profiling you guys, so you can see them in action and get a better understanding if you want to build it or not. And with that, guys, that's going to be it for this deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did enjoy, please like the video, subscribe to the channel to expect definite whole bunch more content coming now that we officially have the set released. I hope you guys got your packs and cases, boxes, whatever, and I'm hoping you guys have been pulling what you guys want / need, and if not, you have the trade bait to be able to trade for the cards that you need, and we can get rocking with some potential webcam tournaments or something, and keep this community alive. Everybody stay together, stay blessed. You guys know what it is. This is your homie S. Dot, TF. You guys have a great day and or night whenever you're catching this video. Peace. Warrior.